Dad, where are you going with all those suitcases? Taking the family on a trip, son. You'll be fine here. What do you mean? I'm part of the family too. Here's some money. There's food in the fridge. We'll be back in a few weeks. My dad left for Asia with my step-siblings. The day I turned 13, they left me $100 in an abandoned condo. Hi, I'm Preston Halstead. Today I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. I never imagined my 13th birthday would be the day my father abandoned me in an empty condo with $100 and a refrigerator full of food that would run out in days. But that's exactly what happened when he chose his new family, over the son he'd raised alone for 6 years. This isn't just about one act of abandonment. It's about years of being slowly erased from my own father's life until I became invisible enough to leave behind completely. My mother died when I was 7 years old. Cancer. It was fast and brutal, and suddenly it was just me and my dad, Garrett. For those first few years after Mom died, Dad and I were close. We grieved together, learned to cook together, figured out how to be a family of two. He came to all my soccer games, helped with homework, and made sure I knew I was loved, even though Mom was gone. Then, when I was 10, Dad met Yolanda at a work conference. She was recently divorced with 3 kids. Twin daughters named Scarlett and Gemma, who were 11, and a son named Quillen, who was 9. Dad started dating her, and at first, it seemed okay. She was nice enough to me, and her kids were polite when we all hung out together. But things changed after they got married a year later. Suddenly, we all lived together in Yolanda's house, and I went from being my dad's priority to being an afterthought. Yolanda's kids got the bigger rooms. Their activities took precedence over mine. Family dinners became about their days at school, their friends, their interests, while I sat quietly eating, waiting for someone to ask about me. Dad started missing my soccer games because Scarlett had dance recitals or Gemma had volleyball tournaments. When I complained, he'd say, "Preston, you need to understand that I have more children to think about now. I can't be everywhere at once." "But you're not anywhere I am anymore," I'd reply. "Don't be dramatic, I'm doing my best." Yolanda made it clear from the beginning that her kids came first. She'd plan elaborate birthday parties for the twins and Quillen, inviting their entire classes, renting bounce houses and hiring entertainers. My 12th birthday was acknowledged with a grocery store cake and a card with $20 in it. "We can't afford to do big parties for everyone," Yolanda explained when I asked why my birthday was so different. "The twins' party was already planned and paid for before your birthday came up. My birthday was 3 months after theirs. They'd had plenty of time to plan something." I started noticing other things too. Yolanda would make special meals for her kids based on their preferences, but when I asked for something I liked, she'd say we already had dinner planned. She'd take Scarlett, Gemma, and Quillen shopping for new clothes regularly, while I wore the same shoes until they had holes in them. "Dad, I need new shoes for PE, I'd tell him. "Ask Yolanda. She handles the clothes shopping." I did. She said to wait until next month. Then wait until next month, Preston. Money doesn't grow on trees. But money apparently grew enough to buy Quillen a new gaming system and the twins matching designer backpacks. Dad started traveling more for work, or at least that's what he said. I later realized many of those work trips were actually family vacations with Yolanda and her kids. They'd go to theme parks or beach resorts, places they'd carefully avoid posting about on social media until after they returned, hoping I wouldn't find out. I found out anyway. Kids at school would mention seeing Scarlett or Gemma at Disney World or the Grand Canyon, and I'd realize I'd spent that week at home with a neighbor checking on me while Dad was supposedly at a conference. When I confronted him, he'd make excuses. "It was a last-minute thing. We didn't have time to arrange for you to come. You had school anyway." "So did they. They missed school for it." "Preston, stop trying to cause problems. You're being jealous and difficult." I wasn't being difficult. I was being erased. The final abandonment happened the day I turned 13. I woke up that morning expecting at least a card, or maybe for Dad to take me out for breakfast like he used to on my birthdays before he remarried. Instead, I found the house in chaos. Suitcases were piled in the living room. Yolanda was rushing around making lists. Scarlett and Gemma were arguing about which outfits to pack. Quillen was playing video games, occasionally shouting about needing his charger packed. "What's going on?" I asked Dad, who was loading luggage into the car. Taking the family on a trip, he said without looking at me. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? What trip? Yolanda planned a trip to Asia, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. 3 weeks. It's going to be educational for the kids. When were you going to tell me to pack? He finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made me feel sick. Guilt, maybe, or resignation. Preston, you're not coming on this trip. What? Why not? The tickets are expensive, and we could only afford 5. Besides, you'd be bored. This trip is really geared toward the younger kids. I'm younger than the twins. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Yolanda came out with more bags. Garrett, we need to leave in an hour to make our flight. Are you ready? I looked at her, then at Dad. You're leaving me? On my birthday? Oh, it's your birthday? Yolanda said, though I knew she knew. Well, happy birthday, Preston. There's food in the fridge, and Garrett left you some money. Dad pulled out his wallet and handed me 5 $20 bills. Here's $100. That should be plenty for food and whatever you need. Mrs. Chen next door has my number if there's an emergency. You're leaving me alone for 3 weeks? I'm 13 years old. You're mature for your age. You'll be fine. The fridge is stocked and there's a freezer full of meals. This is insane. You can't just leave me. Scarlett rolled her eyes as she walked past with her suitcase. Stop being such a baby, Preston. We're just going on vacation. A vacation I'm not invited to. Dad's face hardened. Preston, I don't have time for this. We have a flight to catch. The rent is paid on this condo through the end of the month. There's food, there's money, you'll be fine. What if something happens? What if I get sick? Then call Mrs. Chen or go to the emergency room. You're old enough to handle things. I watched in disbelief as they loaded the last bags into the car. This couldn't be happening. My father couldn't actually be abandoning me on my birthday to take his stepkids on an expensive international vacation. But he was. They left 20 minutes later. Dad gave me an awkward pat on the shoulder. We'll see you in 3 weeks. Be good. Then they were gone, and I was standing alone in the condo on my 13th birthday with $100 and the growing realization that I'd been discarded like I didn't matter. The first few days, I tried to convince myself it would be okay. I went to school, came home, did my homework. I made myself meals from the food in the fridge, but the isolation was crushing. I'd never lived alone before. Every sound at night scared me. I kept the TV on constantly just to feel like someone was there. Mrs. Chen, the neighbor, checked on me twice in the first week. She was a nice older lady who seemed uncomfortable with the situation. Your father really left you alone? She asked the second time she stopped by. He said I'm mature enough to handle it. She frowned but didn't push it. She brought me some homemade dumplings and her phone number written on a sticky note. You call me if you need anything, okay? By the end of the first week, the $100 was mostly gone. I'd had to buy milk, bread, and fresh fruit because what Dad left was running out faster than he'd estimated. I did the math and realized I'd never make it 3 weeks on what he'd given me. I called him. It went to voicemail. I texted him explaining I needed more money. No response. I tried calling every day. Sometimes it would ring, sometimes it went straight to voicemail. He never answered. I sent texts explaining that I was running out of food and money. Nothing. By the middle of the second week, I was eating ramen noodles for every meal because it was all I could afford. I'd lost weight. I was exhausted from not sleeping well. And I was terrified because I'd started getting notices on the door about the condo. Apparently, the condo wasn't just rented. It was being foreclosed on. The bank had been trying to contact my father for months. They'd posted a notice that the property would be seized at the end of the month, which was in 10 days. I was going to be homeless. I called Dad again and again. Finally, on day 16, he answered, Preston, I'm on vacation. What's so urgent? I'm out of money. I'm out of food, and there are notices on the door saying the condo is being foreclosed on. There was a long pause. The foreclosure already? I thought we had more time. More time? Dad, what's happening? Look, I lost my job 6 months ago. Yolanda doesn't know. I've been pretending to go to work while trying to find something new. I couldn't pay the mortgage, so we've been living in the condo under foreclosure. And you left me there alone? Knowing this? I thought we'd be back before they actually seized it. You'll figure something out, Preston. You're resourceful. I'm 13. I'm a kid. You abandoned me. Don't be dramatic. I left you money and food. That ran out. I've been eating ramen for a week, and now I'm going to be homeless. He sighed like I was inconveniencing him. Call your Aunt Margot. She'll take you in. You're not coming back? Another pause. We decided to extend our trip. It's cheaper to stay here than come home to nothing. We're looking at relocating the whole family to Asia. Yolanda has contacts there who can get me work. What about me? You'll stay with Margot. She's your mom's sister. She'll want you. Then he hung up. I stood there holding the phone, shaking. My father had just told me he was abandoning me permanently. He was moving to another continent with his new family and leaving me behind like I was a piece of furniture he didn't want to move. I called Aunt Margot, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, because Dad had slowly cut off contact with my mom's side of the family. I explained everything through tears. Mom dying, Dad remarrying, being excluded, being abandoned, the foreclosure, Dad's plan to move to Asia without me. Aunt Margot was silent for a long moment, then she said, "Pack everything that's yours. I'm coming to get you right now. And then we're calling the police and Child Protective Services because what your father did is illegal." She arrived 4 hours later, furious. She walked through the condo, seeing the foreclosure notices, the empty fridge, the bag of ramen noodles that was my only food. She took pictures of everything. That son of a... She stopped herself. "Preston, honey, get your things. You're never coming back here." We went to the police station first. I gave a statement about being abandoned. The officer, Detective Ronan Carver, looked more and more angry as I explained what had happened. Your father left you, a 13-year-old child, alone for 3 weeks with only $100, knowing the condo was being foreclosed on? Yes, sir. And he's now saying he's not coming back and wants you to live with your aunt permanently? He's moving to Asia with his new family. Detective Carver looked at Aunt Margot. Ma'am, are you willing to take custody of Preston? Absolutely. I've been trying to stay in his life, but his father cut off contact. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. CPS got involved immediately. A caseworker named Thora Blackwell interviewed me extensively. I told her everything. The favoritism, the exclusion, the fake work trips that were actually vacations, the birthday abandonment, everything. This is one of the clearest cases of child abandonment and neglect I've seen, Thora said. Your father will be facing criminal charges. Dad was arrested when he returned to the United States 3 weeks later, expecting to quietly move to Asia without consequences. Instead, he was charged with child abandonment, child neglect, and child endangerment. Yolanda was charged as an accessory since she'd known about and participated in the abandonment. The trial was brutal. I had to testify about years of being treated as less important than my step-siblings, about being left alone on my birthday, about running out of food and money, about discovering I was being left behind permanently. Dad's lawyer tried to paint him as a struggling father who'd made a mistake, but the prosecution had evidence of him spending thousands on the Asia trip while leaving me with $100. They had texts showing he'd ignored my calls for help. They had testimony from neighbors about my isolation. The jury found him guilty on all counts. The judge was harsh during sentencing. Mr. Halstead, you had a duty to care for your son. Instead, you abandoned him on his 13th birthday to take a luxury vacation with your stepchildren. You left him in a foreclosed condo with inadequate money and food. You ignored his calls for help, and when confronted, you told him you were abandoning him permanently. This is unconscionable. Dad was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay child support retroactively and going forward, plus restitution for my care. Yolanda received probation and community service. Most importantly, Aunt Margot was granted full custody of me. Dad's parental rights were terminated at his own request because he couldn't afford child support from prison. So he gave me up officially. Put it in writing that he didn't want to be my father anymore. Aunt Margot gave me the childhood Dad had taken away. She came to every soccer game, helped with homework, made sure I knew I was wanted and loved. She put me in therapy to deal with the abandonment and years of emotional neglect. The therapist, Dr. Soren Quincy, helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. Your father made choices that were about his own issues, not about your worth as a person. You deserved better, and what he did was cruel and illegal. I'm 21 now, in my senior year of college studying social work. I want to help kids who've been abandoned or neglected because I know how it feels to be invisible in your own family. Dad got out of prison after 18 months. He moved to Asia with Yolanda and her kids like he'd always planned. I heard through distant relatives that his marriage to Yolanda fell apart within 2 years when she realized he couldn't hold down a job and had lied about his finances. He's apparently living alone in Thailand, working odd jobs, bitter about how his life turned out. He's tried to contact me a few times over the years, emails mostly, explaining that he had no choice, and that I should understand he was in a difficult position. He's never apologized. He's never taken real responsibility. He just wants me to absolve him so he can feel better about himself. I don't respond. The man who left me alone on my 13th birthday with $100 stopped being my father that day. Aunt Margot is my family now. She's the one who showed up when I needed her, who fought for me, who gave me stability and love. Scarlett, Gemma, and Quillen are adults now too. None of them have ever reached out to apologize for their part in the abandonment or for the years of exclusion. I suppose they're living their lives, maybe not even thinking about the stepbrother their mother and my father left behind. That's fine. I built a life without any of them, a good life, surrounded by people who actually care about me. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever forgive my father. The answer is no. Some things are unforgivable. Abandoning your child on their birthday, leaving them to nearly starve alone, and then trying to permanently abandon them while you start a new life abroad isn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It's a series of choices that reveal who someone really is. And who my father really was turned out to be someone who never deserved to be a parent in the first place. So here's my question for you. If a parent abandoned you as a child to prioritize their new family, leaving you in a dangerous situation, would you ever let them back into your life if they claimed to be sorry years later? Or would you keep them cut off permanently?